let's kind of get into this deep dive. We have a lot of really cool events happening this weekend. I'll kick us off with NCAAs. I'll probably start with you, Ashley. SECs, a lot of really fast performances, seeing teams come away with titles, A&M being an upset. How do you think that's going to transition to NCAAs?
That's right. Yeah. So a couple weekends ago, I was at the SEC Indoor Championships, and I think everyone kind of has this understanding okay, SECs, that is the cream of the crop. Those are some of the best programs, men and women, in the country that are then going to be competing for NCAA titles later on down the line. And so I think that as we're going into NCAAs, a lot of those teams are, like I said, going to be favorites. And so for me, I think the question is all right, we've talked a little bit about this before, I think in the office, so strategically, you don't really need that many points to win NCAAs. You just got to put them in certain particular places to come out on top. And so I think for me, just curious to see how that all plays out. You have some heavy hitters like Arkansas, like I said, like you mentioned, just was upset by Texas A&M at the SEC Indoor Championships. You have USC that's going to be in the title mix. On the women's side, Arkansas is looking dominant. Can anyone challenge them? So I think there's a lot of different storylines going on. But also, too, overall, maybe I should have led with this. NCAA is basically like a world championship meet with the caliber of times we're seeing going into this.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I saw this crazy figure this weekend that Steve Prefontaine's PRs across all his events would not have qualified him for any of them. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, it's weird to think about because you always think, Prefontaine, he was the
GOAT.
The guy. Like you said, the GOAT, but he wouldn't even qualify these days. I know we posted some graphics online on social media showing the cutoff times to get into the fields for NCAA indoors to make those 16-person fields. And I think the men's mile cutoff was 3:54, which, 3:54 in previous years, even a couple of years ago, would be probably the top time in the field, the NCAA lead. So I think this just shows that, hey, these collegiates they're not here to play.
No, for real. And I think a big thing that we've been seeing, all these Olympians that were running at the Olympics last year are showing out just straight out the get-go. It was Aaliyah Butler and Isabel Whitaker ran number 2, number 3 all time for U.S. in the 400 meter at SECs. These Olympians, I thought a lot of them would end up going pro, but they stayed home, stayed at their university, and it's definitely proving that they earned that spot for a reason, that title of Olympian.
And then even you're looking at the men's 200, I think back to SECs Makanakeshi Chiramba, world number 7 all time in the 200.
Wow.
Again, these are the types of times you're seeing world best stuff that ranks highly among the world list. And we're going to see that all go down this weekend in Virginia Beach. So
I would also like to bring up that we're not only seeing Olympians at college meets, we're also seeing Olympians at high school meets. Quincy Wilson, of course, has been, in his junior year of high school. And I think we'll get into a little bit more, but let's not forget we also have high schoolers that have been to the Paris Olympics, which is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it's insane. He's truly running. He said himself grown man time. So he could definitely be NCAAs this weekend. And then we also have Big 12s. I'll start off because I'm a little biased, but Baylor, Nathaniel Ezekiel went 45-7. No, 44-7. I don't know why I made him a second slower just now. I'm sorry. But I think to see him in that environment going to NCAAs, and then fun fact, he's going to Nanjing right after NCAAs. So having that back-to-back is going to be really fun to see him compete, not only for himself and that individual, but also for his team and his country in that relay.
Do y'all have a favorite event you're looking forward to at NCAAs? I think for me, someone that is really, I feel involved in following the collegiate space. There's so many that I'm looking forward to, but I'm curious to see what y'all's thoughts are. If you could pick one event to only watch one, which one would it be and why?
I'm going to pick one for men, one for women.
Okay,
I think for women, the women's 800 is going to be definitely a top favorite for me. I'm excited to see the girlies go sub 2. I'm excited for all the accessories, the jewelries. I'm a fan of that. And then kind of in that same tone, men's 60 hurdles, Johnny Brackens. I'm excited to see him compete. And also his style is up there. I'm I need to get my jewelry game up. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be the men's 3,000, where we have a bunch of heavy hitters, but to me, it's an ACC showdown of the UNC boys, Parker and Ethan, versus UVA's Gary Martin. I will say, as a who, and also with the meet being in Virginia Beach, I'd like to think Gary's going to have the home field advantage, but those guys have been trading off NCAA leads, and they're all pretty darn close. I think it's going to be a crazy race. I'll also note that none of them are in the men's mile. And it seems like there's more of an opportunity there for some surprise wins there. So I think 3K though.
Joshua, what about you?
For me, it's going to be the men's 800. I know he's kind of a little distance heavy, but the men's 800, Tanoda Matsatsa has been running amazing, the collegiate record earlier this year in the 1,000 meter that was believed that he broke his own, Then Aiden McCarthy just ran something really crazy, I believe 145.2 as well. So we have so many guys at 145 at this moment that it's going to be really competitive, and we still have dudes like Sam Whitmarsh in the mix as well. So I think the men's 800 is something that's always going to be it's always going to be something that's exciting, especially with Tanoda leading the way, because last year didn't have the best performances at NCAAs, but performed really well at the U.S. Olympic trials. So let's see if that experience really does him well, and can he get his first championship.
All good picks. Those would all be among my favorites, but I think if I had to pick one outside of those, I think the men's 200 is going to be really interesting, just based on what I saw at SEC Indoors a couple weekends ago. Again, like I mentioned, Makanakashi Charamba of Auburn ran 20.13, number 7 all-time in world history at SECs to win that, but he's going to be facing off against Carly Makarawu of Kentucky. He's a former New Mexico junior college standout, and then he transitioned to the D1 level, and he just ran 20.2 the other weekend at SECs as well. Crazy to think that 20.2 would get you second at a conference meet, but I'm excited to see them go head-to-head, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, I'm excited. And those cutoff times are insane. Can we pull up the women's cutoff times?
Yeah, I know it's crazy to look at just how fast you have to be to get into this.
Mm-hmm. It's insane. I think the women, you have to run sub 23. Which is insane. And I believe these are the women's 400 entries, which we kind of touched on a little bit.
Yes.
Your Aaliyah Butlers, your Isabel Whitakers. It's insane. I think you said this previously, Ashley, but you have to beat an Olympian if you want the title.
Basically, yeah. Like, you got to have a medal to win an NCAA title. So. Yeah. Which also, I think that's one where I'm curious. Again, the women's 400, maybe we could see a collegiate record, American record, fingers crossed.
That's a hot take.
I know we're going to get more into like some picks later, so I won't give away
save it for a little bit
much,
later.
Yes.